Chad Hasty Show, News Talk KFYO. Thank you for tuning in today. We go to the phones. Republican strategist Matt Mackowiak joins us here on KFYO. Matt, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Chad. Good morning.
Well, we appreciate you joining us today. We'll start off with some statewide news, and then we'll get to some of the national headlines of the day. I want to start off the governor yesterday appointing a new Texas Secretary of State, Matt.
Yeah, of course, this follows the unusual tenure of David Whitley, who served really just during legislative session because he couldn't get confirmed in the Texas Senate over questions about election fraud investigation and some work his office was doing that ended up really not kind of panning out based on bad data he'd received. So it's taken a little while, but he's appointed Texas Workforce Commissioner Ruth Hughes of San Antonio, who will now serve as Secretary of State. And look, this is one of the things about this process. The Dems were able to prevent David Whitley from continuing in that office past the end of the legislative session, but they don't have an ability to prevent his new appointee from serving all the way to the next legislative session in January 2021. So Ruth Hughes has, whatever that is, almost a year and a half, a little bit less than a year and a half, to serve until she'll have to be confirmed again as well.
Matt, for those who maybe aren't too familiar with what a Texas Secretary of State does, what is their basic job duty?
Yeah, it's basically two things that are primary. There's a list of kind of second and third tier type things, but the biggest things are, number one, there is effectively a foreign policy role in the sense that you are the sort of lead representative and lead negotiator with Mexico. And so you work to a great extent in South Texas with the counties along the border. You work with your counterpart in Mexico to try to, increase trade, increase, cultural, efforts between the two countries to strengthen the relationship, strengthen the economies of both Mexico and Texas. And then second, and this is where Whitley got in a little bit of hot water, I would argue pretty unfairly, based on the bad data he'd gotten from Department of Public Safety. But you are the chief elections officer for the state of Texas. So it really is a nonpartisan office. But you are responsible for overseeing all the elections in the state of Texas. And so that has to do with things like voting machines, things like canvassing, things like qualifying candidates for the ballot, those kinds of issues.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak here on the Chad Hasty Show. Matt, let's talk about another issue that is still swirling, 3-4 weeks? What are we now? With this audio tape, this recording of the meeting between Speaker Dennis Bonnen, Dustin Burrows, and Michael Quinn Sullivan. I know you were quoted in the Dallas Morning News yesterday, basically reiterating some stuff you'd already said here on this show about the recording. The lieutenant governor yesterday said on Mark Davis's show there in Dallas that the longer this went on, the worse it's going to be for the Republicans, and that this could put into play the Texas House. Do you feel the same way?
I do, and I agree with the lieutenant governor, and I said on your show that I think it's important that the tape come out from a transparency standpoint. I don't know if it can be released now, given that the Texas Rangers are investigating. It's possible that investigation has to be complete. But I think if it was released and everyone could hear it, it's going to be very hard to move on until that happens, because people are dealing with, secondhand information and what someone said was on it. Everyone needs to be able to listen and draw their own conclusions. Obviously, the first casualty of this scandal or controversy, whatever word you want to use, came on Friday when I know you reported exclusively that Dustin Burrows had resigned as caucus chair. Look, I know this is sensitive given your audience, and State Representative Burrows is an important legislator, particularly as Ways and Means chairman, but you simply cannot serve in the position of caucus chair and work to undermine your own members. It's, maybe there's a different expectation for speaker or for some other, state rep, but when you are elected by the caucus, by the Republican caucus, you are there to serve all the members. And so I was kind of surprised the resignation took as long as it did. It was simply an untenable position. Doesn't mean he won't stay in the legislature. Doesn't mean he can't serve Lubbock and the surrounding areas. Doesn't mean he can't have a good career. Just means based on what happened, he can't remain caucus chair. So that's happened now. The caucus vice chair, Stephanie Click of Fort Worth, will slide in at least on a temporary basis. And then at some point, I imagine the caucus will meet and perhaps elect a new chair. I don't know when that would be. So, we're at this point, Chad. I think it's going to come down to what the Rangers investigation finds. It's hard for me to see how there would be any other revelations apart from the tape itself. The tape is clear. It captures the entire meeting. I imagine they may be interviewing the participants to see if, there's any other information they need. But I would think this is a pretty quick investigation, and we should have some word of what their conclusions are here fairly soon.
What would you imagine? Let's say Texas Rangers come back and say, "Listen, it doesn't sound good. This offer of from the speaker of media credentials, but no one broke the law here." You can talk about, morals, ethic, whatever you want to talk about. No one broke the law here. This is dirty politics. Legislature have at it, and let the chips fall where they may. What do you think the reaction is? Do you think Bonnen himself can survive as speaker even if the audio does come out, but if there's no charges or nothing illegal happened, do you think he can survive as speaker?
I think getting past the potential criminal liability is a big issue. It's a big corner for him to turn because it removes the worst case scenario from this. But there's no doubt he's going to have to rebuild trust with the members, and it starts with specific members who are named, not just the 10 Republicans that he basically says it's okay to go after, but also the 3 or 4 Democrats that he mentioned specifically as well. And so he's going to have to rebuild trust with members, and that's more of an issue of can he do that over the next year and a half and then earn the confidence of enough members to get reelected speaker. Of course, that's a ways off. I mean, that's several political lifetimes from now. Yeah. I do think it would be. I do think that if the scenario you describe occurs, it will probably limit the damage, and it would give Bonnen a chance to really kind of turn the story back the other direction and really start rebuilding trust. So that's obviously what he's hoping for. I have no idea whether that is a likely scenario. We'll have to see what they say.
I'm just thinking here, but if he's able to raise a lot of money and spread that money around and Republicans keep the House, Matt, money can solve a lot of issues.
No doubt. And listen, I mean, from a House Republican standpoint, all they care about is holding the House, particularly going into redistricting and the new legislative session. So, he's going to have an opportunity to continue doing the job, and he needs to obviously do the best job he possibly can. That 9-seat majority is a narrow majority, and the Democrats feel confident they can take it back. And so, we're going to have to be much more aggressive and cohesive as a group to put ourselves in that position. And that's what's so kind of concerning about this has really, I think, rocked his operation and put him on, if not on, certainly on defense, but also kind of added uncertainty to him. I imagine his fundraising has slowed down considerably over the last month, and that's not ideal. That said, he did transfer $3 million into a PAC to try to hold the Republican majority. So, it's not clear how much more he thinks he'll need, but he certainly needs to be raising money, contributing to Republican members and helping them and campaigning for them. And as soon as this cloud is removed, whenever that is, it's going to be a lot easier for him to do that.
Matt, before we let you go, and just because it's just so much fun to see Beto 5.0, the angry Beto O'Rourke, the one who thinks America was founded on racism. Matt, I think every single day that he's in the news now is a great day for the Republicans and a great day for Trump. He's unhinged. He's crazy.
Yeah, he is. Absolutely. This is not the, post-partisan, let's all work together, kumbaya candidate that we saw, literally 8 months ago in Texas, running for United States Senate. This is woke Beto, and he's trying to prove to the left that he's every bit as progressive as the rest of the candidates. To me, the takeaway is he can't possibly run for U.S. Senate in Texas given the things he said. National gun registry, and I believe he might have even taken a position of mandatory buybacks. Like you said, this kind of country being, quote, founded on racism. Yeah, I don't understand the desire to run for office and make the argument that the United States is such a bad place. Certainly there are areas where you can change direction, offer new policies. You think the country's not doing as well as it can in certain areas. That's one thing. But to basically say the whole country's racist is just unreal. It's unbelievable. And that's just simply not going to ring true to the vast majority of Americans. Certainly race is an issue. And we have to confront it and be honest about it, and I think that's a worthy discussion and a worthy debate. But to use the kind of language he's using is so over the top. He may be appealing to a very, very, very far left, slice of the Democratic primary electorate. But boy, it sure seems penny wise and pound foolish.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, tell people about your newsletter and also about your podcast as well.
The newsletter is called Must Read Texas. We have 3,000 Texans that are subscribers. We send a morning email summary from the top news around the state every single weekday morning by 9 a.m. You can sign up at mustreadtexas.com. It includes a free 1-week trial. The podcast is called Mac on Politics. It's available in the iTunes Store, on Google Play, on Stitcher, and on Spotify. We do a new episode each week with newsmakers, policymakers, you name it. Most recent episode's a fascinating conversation about the economy and trade with John Tamney, who runs Real Clear Markets. Really has really sharp and interesting opinions, and really kind of challenges even some of my own ideas about the economy. So you can check out that episode.
Very nice. Matt, as always, appreciate your time. We'll visit with you next week.
Thanks, Chad. See you.
That's Matt Mackowiak here on the Chad Hasty Show.